Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today's topic is going to be a little bit controversial. I'm talking about Netflix's blackwashing problem. Well, it's not specific to Netflix. Disney started it, I would say, but then it's just been taken too far, and now Netflix is coming out with a documentary series of Cleopatra claiming that she was black. If it was fiction, it would still okay, sure, why not? It would still be a little iffy, but this is a documentary series about Cleopatra, and they have the nerve to tell us that she was black when scholars and all evidence suggests that she was not. She was of Macedonian Greek descent, and it is just insane. She was very far from black, and that's not to say there weren't other black figures, kings and queens who were just as impressive. If you really wanted to highlight a black figure, you would do so by giving them the proper respect. You would do a documentary on said those people who are not as mainstream as Cleopatra, but instead you chose to go for Cleopatra because she's mainstream, and also because putting a black face on a white person's body is just so much easier than doing the work of research yourself.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, "I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black."
The fact that Netflix included such a clip unironically in a documentary series about Cleopatra is beyond ridiculous. Parents send their kids to school not just to hear teachers or the principal's opinions about what they thought about historical figures. It is supposed to be an education. Do I need to really explain this and break down how school works? That's education. I don't know what your grandma was on about. I'm sorry, but the fact that it's just borderline ridiculous. All of the historians unanimously agree that she was of Greek descent, and there was very, very little chance that she was black. So instead of focusing on white people and blackwashing them, how about giving other races the common courtesy and the respect that they deserve, and give them their own separate shows, give them their own documentaries? There are plenty of black queens throughout history, okay, that they could have made a documentary series on. They chose to go with the most popular one and then blackwash her because that's lazy. It's literally pandering to the audience of today. It's gotten to the point where we're erasing our own history just to please a few others. Nobody wanted this. Majority of the people don't want this. A lot of people are seeing reason behind this and are just that's not cool, Netflix. But yeah, I wonder who they're doing this for. Black people are not an advocate for this. People of color aren't advocating this.
I imagine her to have curly hair like me and a similar skin color.
Okay, and I'm just supposed to take your word for it. It's ridiculous that Netflix included such a clip in the official trailer for Cleopatra, which again, I repeat, is a documentary series, would include that clip unironically. What have we come to? There are some people that think that if it's done with fiction, it's okay, but documentary series like Cleopatra is not okay, and I disagree. I'd rather have unique original stories containing unique original persons of color. A lot of people are also saying that it shouldn't matter what race the Little Mermaid is, for example, because it's a fictional character, and that the benefit that comes from race swapping is that a lot of black girls get to see her as their role model just because she's black. I mean, you defeat the very purpose that I used to be able to connect with characters from whatever race that they were, regardless. It's not the race that ties us together. It's the emotions, it's the human connection, it's the feelings that we all share, the bond that we all share, regardless of the race. I don't think I should be able to only relate to people that look like me. Is that the sort of message that Disney and you are trying to push? I mean, I always related to the Little Mermaid ever since I was a little girl, and Mermaid was white, and look at me. So I never had a problem connecting with characters that weren't of a similar race. It is also not the artist's true depiction. If you are to take liberties with old stories and retell some parts of it, add to it, subtract from it, it should always be in the service of the story and not as a means to pander to the audience. For example, in Last of Us, I think it was either Bill or Frank who in the game wasn't even shown and was just given a reference to. It was one of the characters that wasn't ever shown in the game. However, in the show, in episode 3, the whole episode revolves around Bill and Frank, which basically, from the story's perspective from the game, didn't really get that much screen time, and yet the whole episode was dedicated to them, and it's one of the most popular episodes out there. And that made sense because that was in service of the story. That change was greatly appreciated. Race swapping Ariel, I mean, that is lazy writing at best. You can do better, Disney, and I'm tired of people making excuses for big corporations like Disney because they clearly have the budget to do better. Also, it just really looks bad. I mean, are you serious? Is that what you're doing to Sebastian? It's so sad. I'm not saying that race swapping never works. There are chances where it does. Let me give you an example. Marvel's Namor in Wakanda Forever is actually from Atlantis in the comics, and he's white. But in the movie Wakanda Forever, he is actually a colored person because he's not from Atlantis anymore, because they changed his background, his story, his lore according to his race. It's not just that they swapped out the race and then did nothing else. They completely changed Namor's lore, his background, his heritage, all things drastically changed for that. That was in service of the story. So that's just one of the examples where race swapping works, where it makes sense for the story, where it doesn't feel cheap and lazy. It's lazy representation is what it is. Of course, representation is important. I understand that. But representation at what cost? Because I'm not going to settle for lazy representation. Snow White is just another offense on Disney's list. Snow White, you know, the girl with skin as white as snow. It's literally there in the original story by Brothers Grimm. Do I need to say more? Why do we need these white characters to be race swapped by other races? Please give us original stories. You can do that. And you have proved that in Turning Red. Oh my god, I fucking love that story. It is just so good. And not only is it beautiful, I just adore the characters. It's so relatable. It's so relatable as an Asian person, even though it's a different kind of Asian, but it's just like a lot of similarities, and it just meant the world to me. Movies like Soul. I mean, the whole culture, the whole family dynamic of the character, his fascination with music and jazz, and just, it was just done so well. So Disney does know how to do these stories well, and yet it insists on just providing us with this lazy representation. Plus, by that same logic, wouldn't black kids not be able to relate to Ariel because she's also a mermaid? Wouldn't that entail that you need to be a mermaid in order to relate to mermaids? I mean, you guys did it. Like, everybody that's been saying it's important to see, you know, it's important for them to see black characters, and I'm not denying that. I just don't want those black characters to be race swapped with white characters. Regardless, bottom line is, if you are not going to tolerate a white Princess and the Frog, you shouldn't tolerate a black Little Mermaid. The double standards when it comes to whitewashing and blackwashing need to go. As for people who still think blackwashing doesn't exist, it is just inaccurate. I mean, you see it not just like bleeding into fiction, you see it bleeding into reality, where our histories are being eradicated. Like a black Cleopatra, where does it end? We have to draw the line somewhere, and we're not racist for saying so. So yeah, let's just focus on better stories for persons of color characters, you know, rather than just like putting their race onto a white person. I'd really appreciate that. Again, thank you so much for watching. I know this was like a bit of a heavy subject, so I was really nervous filming it, and it took me ages, so I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe if you really enjoyed this kind of stuff. I'll see you next time. Bye.